Gig Harbor is perhaps one of the most charming, cute, adorable towns in all of Washington State. That is for sure. Anybody who disagrees, I'll arm wrestle you. Probably lose, but nonetheless, I think it's worth a shot.
But even though it is one of the best, most quaint, all the things that Joe said, areas in Washington State, it really does come with some cons as well. So today we're going to give you 6 pros and 6 cons and let you decide for yourself if you think this is going to be the next place that you want to live.
We're Joe and Charity. We're local realtors, and we help people just like you every week who are making the decision to move to the Puget Sound area. So feel free to reach out to us if you have more questions on the number below.
All right, so let's get started with pro number 1.
So the first pro is the waterfront lifestyle living.
Yeah, this right here, that's it.
So you got to grab your cup of coffee, you meander along the little harbor area, stop by your favorite little place to grab pastry. It's pretty much quintessential. And then you're like, hey, I'm amped up, I'm ready to go. Jump in your kayak, jump on the paddleboard, jump in your boat. Whatever's up to you on the water, this is it.
This charm, in fact, is what has got us always thinking about moving to Gig Harbor. Even though we live in a coastal town down in Olympia, there's something about this particular waterfront location that is, I don't know.
Seems like you could just revolve all of your life around this little harbor, all of your activities, all of those things, but just everything on and by the water. And it just makes you feel better about life. I was talking to my brother-in-law about this. Whenever he's around the water, his blood pressure goes down. It just kind of makes him feel better about life. Of course, then when he's around me, his blood pressure goes up and it stresses him out. So, I mean, it's a give and take. It really is.
So he can only handle being with Joe
On the water.
when we're on the water. So the stunning scenery and this lifestyle is definitely the number 1 pro. But like we said, there's some cons. And the first con might get you thinking about whether you want to land here or not.
The first con is really going to be the bottleneck traffic across the Narrows Bridge. So getting in and out of Gig Harbor, that's really your only way unless you're going to go up through the peninsula, grab a ferry out of Bremerton, which is just became chaos, so don't do that. But what you do want to understand is high traffic times, it's a little bit of a hassle. And also you're paying to get over across the bridge either way. So that is a big deal for some.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably the biggest deal. If you don't want to be paying tolls every time you go to the east, then that might be something that you're thinking, nah, that doesn't sound like fun at all.
I actually think it's a little bit charming, only because I fish underneath those bridges. That's another conversation to be had at a different day.
So while getting in and out of Gig Harbor can be a challenge, there's some great reasons why you would just want to just stay here. You're not even going anywhere.
No reason to leave. And we're going to give you that because that leads to our second pro of living in Gig Harbor.
The second pro is the amazing access that you have to outdoor activity.
Of course, it all starts with the water itself. Whether you're into kayaking, whether you're into paddleboarding, whether you're into boating, whether you're into scuba diving, whether you're into whatever type of water activity you want to be, it is right here for you to be able to enjoy for sure. However, that's not the extent of it.
In fact, there are some great parks here, including 2 state parks, Kopachuck State Park and Penrose State Park. And you have access to beaches and trails and all of the wonderful things that parks have to offer. And then, just to get outside of Gig Harbor, you are at the gateway to the Olympic National Forest, which means you have umpteen trails, climb up the mountains, go exploring, see the mountain goats, waterfalls, everything. You are really ideally located for any kind of outdoor activity that you're looking for.
Now, of course, all that wonderful access to the outdoors sometimes comes with a heavy price tag, and it does here as well. That is, I would say, probably the second con is the cost of living, predominantly in the housing market. So the median price point in Gig Harbor is $780,000. Now, that means there's things below it. Sometimes your rural areas around Gig Harbor could be a little bit cheaper than that, or your condos. But it could go way up from there, and quite frankly, just pretty quickly and more often than you would think. So if you're thinking about living on the water, or if you're thinking about a really great water view, then that's probably you're going to be considering over $1 million and going significantly up from there.
Depending on the size of house and how amazing that view is. Now, if you can navigate those housing costs, then you are definitely going to be happy about our next pro. Pro number 3 is that this offers a really unique sense of community with an upscale touch.
Yes, what we mean by upscale is sometimes you could go to a little community, Puget Sound, coastal, and it's fairly rustic. What you're going to find here is there might be rustic, but it's really going to be far more refined.
Right.
And it's going to separate those two. So if rustic's what you're looking for, we'll help you find a different place or maybe a unique place here. But more than likely, if you're looking for the refined, you're going to find it here for sure.
So Gig Harbor offers the feel of community. You can go into one of the local boutiques and people are going to remember your name. You're going to be able to get a great glass of wine and a wonderful meal. This is a place where you just feel like you're going to casually meander and wander around and feel at home and feel like, you know, it's just a place that you can rest and relax and soak in. Exactly.
Now, of course, if you're coming from a different part of the country, this next one's going to make a lot of sense to you because there is something that happens here that casts a long shadow, a gray one, over much of the year here in the Northwest.
So you probably know that our next con is going to be the weather.
Yeah.
It was just gray here a few minutes ago, and now it's sunny, which is an interesting thing about this overshadow.
Yes.
You notice a difference in light. You really do. So you can be inside and you can be on a gray day feeling like, oh, it's dark and gloomy. And then you see the sun pop out and you're ready to go outside.
Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. Let's just meander. That truly is what happens. So if you're working from home, you're going to love this and perhaps find yourself doing a lot of walks, or you're going to be sad, which is
seasonal affective disorder, which happens to people who live here where there's not enough sun. Of course, you can get some artificial light to help you out with that, but really pop outside when the sun comes out.
And that's what we do.
Really,
sun comes out midday, I'm going to creep out a little bit, walk around the block, and then go from there.
So besides the gray, there's obviously some water that comes down from those clouds called the rain, but it's not too rainy here all the time. It's sprinkly, drizzly, sometimes occasional downpour. But if you're coming from a state that is primarily sunny all the time, then it might take you a little while to get adjusted. So while the weather might be a bit of a downer, yeah, there are still so many other things to love.
So that leads us to the fourth pro of living in this area. It is family friendly and safe. And however you define family, whether that's a cat, that's a dog, that's a kid, that's a partner, that's a parent, however you do it, it's all great because it's a very wonderful community that way. And it's safe. We want to compare that to maybe some other areas so you have a better understanding.
So if we were to compare crime rates with Gig Harbor and Seattle, you would find that for violent crimes, Seattle is 3 times more crime rated than us, and we want a low number. The lower the number, the better. So it is a very safe area.
Yeah, it's amazing. For those of you who do have kids, there are highly rated schools here in Gig Harbor. That starts with wonderful preschools, middle schools, and of course the high school as well. So it has a lot going on for families in a traditional sense.
And besides that, there's great community events that are happening all throughout the year that help everybody to feel a sense of community and feel like you are part of this family safe area.
And so if you're thinking to yourself, man, that's great family feel, great community, low on crime. However, I gotta let you know, this place winds down early. So if you like the nightlife and you like the boogie, well, you might be going across the bridge back over to Tacoma or up to Seattle to get there.
That brings us to con number 4, is a very limited nightlife and shopping. I mean, there are big box stores, there's that kind of shopping.
Sure.
And as we mentioned, there's boutiques. But for anything more extensive, you're gonna need to go to Tacoma or Seattle or Bellevue or somewhere like that. There's really not enough people here to support major shopping. And the nightlife,
I mean, hey, the nightlife is the stars. That's what I'm saying. So instead of the nightlife being out dancing and clubbing, if you're looking for a little bit of glass of wine or whiskey on the dock as you're watching the sunset, that's the type of nightlife that you're going to find here.
so while the nightlife definitely is limited, there are some wonderful daytime activities and events here and community that really are going to keep you happy all the time.
So of course, there's a regular farmers market around major holidays. There are wonderful community events that are right down here at the harbor. Amazing.
Yeah, as well as all of the events that happen throughout the year. One of them is the Maritime Festival, and there's things for the family, food, music, all kinds of great things. And another favorite event is Cider Swig, which is over 100 different cider makers that come in one place right here. You get to taste them all if you could handle casing over 100 in one day.
Say you might need a driver.
And then of course, all summer long, you've got concerts in the park right here as well. And besides that, there are tons. You can go on to Gig Harbor's community calendar and see all the amazing things that they have to offer that contributes to this wonderful community spirit.
Now with all that wonderful small town community feel, which is amazing, that does lead us to our fifth con, and that is might be a little too small for you. There are less than 13,000 people that live in Gig Harbor.
That's not very many.
Not a lot of space here. For example, it's like basically 8 miles north, south, east, west. So not a lot going on. Just be aware of that because that is a big rock.
You might end up feeling like you're in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah, like the Truman Show.
Exactly, like the Truman Show. But if you are used to having a little bit more room to spread out, a little bit more anonymity, then this is probably not going to be the place for you because I think people are going to get to know you unless you just stay boarded up in your house.
Which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a big fan, incidentally. Now, that bubble might be a con. However, it does lead to our number 6 on the pro list, and that is you are close to Tacoma, not too far away from Seattle, and it's really wonderfully located where it's at.
So if you love actually living in that little small town community bubble, and knowing that there are some really exciting things to do in Tacoma or Seattle, and you want to be just a little bit distance away, then this is the place for you.
Get up to Seattle, spend a fun day up there, whether you're a sports fan like me or not. Wonderful things to do there, and it's really basically an hour away. You're set.
Yeah, so the things that you can do in Tacoma that you're not going to get here, they're going to be things like the museums. In fact, Tacoma has a wonderful museum district, and you really are about 20 minutes away from all of that. It's really not very far at all. So don't be too concerned about being in a small area that doesn't have enough to do because, like I said, you're close.
Now, this leads us to the last con, and that is it's a little bit older. So think about my hair. Yep, that's what you're going to see a lot of. I don't have any, but you'll hopefully see with other people. But it is a little older community, partly because of its affordability. It's a little bit more expensive, partly because people love to move here once they're getting out of the rat race. So this is one of those great locations to get to, but that is something to be aware of.
In fact, 56% of residents are 40 and older, and there's only 18% that are in their 20s and 30s. So 20s and 30s tend to exit, stage left, and the 40s and up, they tend to come here.
If you've managed everything right, this is where you want to be.
So that wraps up our top 6 pros and cons, and we have covered a lot. We have covered all the wonderful reasons why you'd want to live here and all of the
things you'd have to deal with if you do decide to get here.
Yeah, and really they're not that bad.
Yeah, I think they're worth it for sure. I've put up with some of those hassles to be here and consider it every week.
We know that making a big decision like a move across the country or even across the state or to a new city is a really big decision, and we are here to help you. So if there's anything that we talked about that you'd like more information on, or you'd like to know a little bit more about other areas in our region, then just reach out to that number below. We'd be happy to help you with everything you need to know to make your next best decision. And of course, as always, if you've enjoyed this video, then keep watching, because the next video, we're going to tell you a little bit more about what other real estate agents don't tell you about moving to Washington State.